Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update for uranium. I'm going to go over and see and look at the charts. Some of these will be weekly candlesticks, daily candlesticks, kind of varied up a little bit. We'll look at some physical uranium and see what's going on with the uranium sector. Is this a bottom? Are we going to continue lower? Sometimes that's really difficult to tell in the very short-term time frames. I like looking at the big picture view, and the big picture views most of the time, I mean, it's like 99% of the time right. So you just kind of have to hang on and go through all these bumps along the way. But let's jump in here. I'll give you my financial opinion. Please don't take it as advice. And I'll let you know what my opinion is on uranium. So here's the physical, kind of zoomed in. Yeah, we've been moving around a little bit here. I think it was up maybe today a little bit, but this is 1 day delayed. But yeah, we've been moving sideways, kind of just grinding around. But if you back out, I mean, this chart looks fantastic. Looks absolutely fantastic, and I don't see any reason to be bearish on uranium. I'd be completely bullish at the moment. So that looks really good from a long-term perspective. Going to URNM, this is a weekly candlestick basis. That means each candlestick is a week. We draw this in, and we're hitting this resistance line. We got this resistance line, we're hitting it. Come up, hit, and we have not broken that resistance line. Doesn't mean we will, but we just haven't yet. And looking at the weekly candlestick, this could pull back a little bit. We have a bearish engulfing pattern on a weekly candlestick basis, and the resistance is holding the line. Now, looking at North Shore Global Uranium on the daily, doesn't look as bad. It looks like it's trying to reverse momentum this past day or today. It sold off, and then it came back up throughout the day. And usually, that could mean that we could have a little reversal here. Now, looking at, this is a 5-day chart, and I'll just show you what I mean by it. We put this in here. I go down, and it's real close to trying to break its downtrend line. It's real close. It hasn't broken it yet. So we're not in the clear yet, but it is coming on up, and we're trying to break here next week. But we're still in the downtrend line. We're still downtrending. We're seeing these wicks at the bottom on some of these. And that's what you want to see. Usually you see wicks at the bottom if it wants to go back up. There's a wick. It's a hammer pattern there. It came back up. Another little wick at the bottom there with the bullish engulfing. Comes back up. Another bullish engulfing pattern. And I think we'll probably find support here sometime soon. Hopefully, at least. We're seeing all these little wicks at the bottom. Little hammer pattern here in an XE. Usually that means it's a reversal candlestick to potentially go on up. You know, maybe we chop sideways at the 50-day or something. Here's Fission Uranium Corp. This one, looking at the right-hand side, I mean, I think we're trying to put in a little bit of a sideways motion before moving on up. But looking at it, big buying pressure on the left-hand side here, smaller selling pressure. I think it still looks really good. Sky Harbor, I mean, all these look pretty good. Big buying pressure here, these 2 days, and then it just kind of sold back off. Hopefully we can hold somewhere in here at the 50-day, have a little bit of a higher low. So that doesn't look too bad. Alaska Uranium, a lot of resistance up here in this section up here, 63, 64 cents. We're coming back into some support underneath here, so I bet you we're going to find some support here soon for Alaska. Base load's actually looking good. That doesn't look too bad. It's almost a bullish engulfing pattern. We might see it move on up. The good thing that looks good is we've got big buying pressure, small selling pressure. Big buying pressure, small selling pressure. It's continuing that big buying pressure, small selling pressure movement, which means that the bulls are in control at the moment. And base load, looking on a weekly candlestick basis, looks absolutely excellent. You see the big buying pressure and then the slow leak off of sellers. We get big buying pressure coming in, small leak off of sellers. I think that looks good to continue higher over time, obviously. And then here's Pierpoint Uranium. That one's been chopping sideways to a slight uptrend, higher lows coming through. So that looks good too. And Standard Uranium, it continues to put in higher lows. This could be very close to a bottom here. So we're moving in an uptrend. It's a left to right pattern. I call it left to right. Whenever it's left to right, it's doing what it should be doing, moving up. An Asian court is doing the same thing. We broke this big pattern here, broke to the upside, pulled back, and maybe we find some support in here, which means a low, higher low, and we've got a little bit of a pattern developing. So that looks good too. It's not bad. Denison Mines, a little bit of a bigger sell-off day today. I think we're going to find support sometime soon underneath here, and then we'll see what happens there. But the support's all, $1.50. I think we won't go much past 150. That's my guess. Here's ISO Energy. ISO Energy, man, it's going all through here. Which way is this thing going to break? We'll find out here shortly which way this thing's going to break. What we have here is it's basically coiling up a little bit. I'll just kind of draw it like that, and we're coiling up. But we came and coiled up from the top side down. So sometimes this wants to maybe break to the downside. Support is about 250 underneath. But this thing's rallied monster. This is a monster rally here. We'll see which way this thing breaks out of this pattern. But it could break to the downside, so don't be surprised. Nice big wick at the bottom here. Usually that's a reversal day where you come down, it reverses, and the momentum is ending upward. That's why you have this big wick at the bottom. And when it's coming back up, the momentum could carry it a little bit higher next week. We do have lows here, higher low, and maybe we find a low somewhere in here. There is support coming out at 725. It basically came back and touched this support line. So I think it might actually head higher. It's got a chance to head higher here. That's the line I'm talking about, somewhere in that range. And it basically came back and touched it, and then maybe we head on up. Maybe. We're seeing these little hammer candlesticks. They're reversal patterns most of the time, which means we could reverse higher here. There's one here. It's a reversal pattern and moved on up. These wicks at the bottom. We're still seeing these wicks at the bottom, so I think we're getting close to a potential bottom. We've had support right here. Basically came back and buyers bought it back up a little bit. Same with Uroi. Again, we're throwing these candlestick patterns. I think we're going to head higher. The sellers aren't just whopping this thing lower. If this was going here, I'll do something here for you guys. If this was going to go lower, and what you would see is you'd see these big down candlesticks, and they would end very strong. They would end like this. And then if you've got a reversal, it usually puts a wick at the bottom like this. So what happens is you come down strong, end strong, and then it reverses and comes back up, and then you go into, oh man, that's not good. You get these, an up move. And then usually it loses steam. And then you get like a little candlestick like that with a wick at the top. That's kind of the reversal patterns as it goes back and forth. If this was going down and the sellers were winning here, you would see candlesticks that were big block candlesticks that are red. And they would close very strong at the bottom. Means that the sellers are selling and there's not many buyers to hold it up. Whenever you start seeing these wicks at the bottom here, kind of like this guy here, those there are reversal patterns to move on up, and we saw a move up. Here's another wick at the bottom, we moved up. Another wick at the bottom, here's another one here too. And sometimes, remember, they're not 100%, but you're looking for these wicks, and we got this wick in the bottom right here. So I think that there is buyers there. They're buying it back up throughout the day. Sometimes it wants to reverse and move on higher. Remember, this is just probabilities. It doesn't mean that's 100% outcome. So that Uroi doesn't look bad. It's got that wick at the bottom. And Encore Energy, another thing that I look at when you look at these patterns, and I'll do Encore here. So here's Encore Energy. And one thing I look for is I look for this big buying pressure right here. The sellers could sell it back only this far. Then the buyer came in and they pushed it higher. And all they did over all these days, a whole bunch of different days in here, is they brought it down real slow. What that means is you have an imbalance of buyers and sellers. And that is usually a trait where the stock will eventually turn and head higher. Because when you go in uptrends, you have larger up days and then small down days. That is the pattern that it makes as stocks go higher. So that exhibits the pattern of a continuation higher. And we're seeing that in Bannerman as well. Nice big up move, small sell-off. I think we're coming close to a bottom here where we're about to turn and move on up. Same with Deep Yellow. I don't think we're going to sell off much below 675. We'll see, but it looks pretty good on how this thing's developing. Forces Metals has that little wick at the bottom. I think there's buyers down here. We've got the two big up days here in a row, and then the small leak off of sellers. That is analogous usually to a move that's going to come to the upside. It's just chopping sideways at the moment. The sellers are not in control. I think the buyers are hanging in there. And same with Goviax. Small little sell-off days. That's all we're seeing on this right-hand side. The sellers are not coming in here. They're not pushing this lower. They're not putting huge candlesticks anywhere. So I think it'll resolve upward whenever it resolves. In Global Atomic, little wick at the bottom. I think we're going to probably come to the bottom of the pullback sometime soon. Laramide's got a wick at the bottom too. This is a hammer pattern, which is usually a reversal pattern. You have a hammer pattern here, which is a reversal upward. You come back down, another hammer pattern. So hammer patterns are usually found at the bottom of some of these patterns. Not all the time, but some of the times. Statistically speaking, I think we could head up here. Or we bottom and then kind of go back and forth a little bit. Peninsula Energy, moving on sideways, doesn't look too bad. Big up days, small leak off of sellers. That looks good for a continuation pattern upward. And Boss has the same looking pattern here. Could this go a little bit lower? It could. It could sell off a little bit more before moving on up, but it's got the ingredients for an upward move. Here's CURE, or International Consolidated Uranium. We can throw a pattern, kind of through here, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. Hitting the tops of these guys. This could head a little bit lower. That's what these little black candlesticks are. We got two big sell-off days, small up days. That usually means we could head a little bit lower in a consolidation period. Kazatomprom, two big up days, the small sell-off. Again, these are traits for a continuation pattern up. Doesn't mean that it's just going to turn and go up, but the sellers aren't really selling this thing off very much. Paladin Energy, a little bit of a sell-off. It could go a little bit lower. But I bet you we're just going to kind of chop sideways for a little bit, develop a pattern, and then break it. Lotus Resources doesn't look too bad. Nice little bullish engulfing pattern. I think it's trying to put in a short-term bottom here. Forum Energy Metals, this is an exploration company. I guess the market didn't like the results at Janus Lake. But would I be buying it down here? I usually wait for this to firm up a little bit. Usually these kind of go down and stay down for a little bit, but we'll see. Here's Appia Energy. Appia Energy, looking at this. Nice big buying pressure came down. I bought in here. And we could head lower here, but it still looks all right. Let me see if I can throw a trend line in here. Got a trend line coming through here. Yeah, we're still doing good. And this is just a big old pattern here that it's developing. Something like that. And we're still in this pattern. I think it's still good to be looking at Appia Energy. I think we're going to come out of the tip and break to the upside. So what I would be doing is if this thing stays inside this pattern down here, I would probably be buying it. That's what I would be doing. Appia looks pretty good. So that looks that is uranium update today. I think that it's starting to turn on some of them. We're seeing wicks at the bottom. Usually that's a reversal pattern. It comes down and then it comes back up, and the momentum is coming to the upside. Keep in mind that these are statistical probabilities. It doesn't mean that just because you have a probability of it happening, and maybe it favors you a little bit, like 60, 70%, doesn't mean it always works out that way. And that's the risk with short-term trading, if you're doing short-term trading, is that you can have these footprints that the buyers and sellers leave, and they're only statistical probabilities. But if you see a big trend that's coming down, bottoming, and turning back up, that's much more powerful and much harder to basically avert or change that trend. So what I see on the bigger trends like Appia behind me, that big pattern, that's forming for a reason. We're probably going to break to the upside of it. That's a rare earth uranium company. And I did add a little bit recently in that one. That was my last one I added. I'm waiting for it to break out of this pattern. I'm trying to buy it at this tip here. I kind of just slowly cost average in. I become a sprinkle master and sprinkle some money in there. And I've owned Appia for a while, well over a year, and I'm just holding on. So that's what the uranium sector looks like. Again, if you guys are trading, I would probably wait and buy into strength. I don't buy into weakness. If you're trading, and wait for a break of a chart pattern if you're trading this stuff. I'm investing. So I'm looking for the big picture. I'm trying to pick off shares at bottoms of patterns and whatnot. And if it breaks to the downside, I'm just going to hold on. So it's a little bit different mindset. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.